So my presentation is on evaluating credibility of sources. So what is credibility? The definition of credibility is the quality of being trusted and believed in. You should ask yourself these three things. Can the author be trusted? Is there any discrepancies between what the author is saying? As in, is there something the author is saying that contradicts the other thing the author is saying? Does the author's reasoning make logical sense? So there's a couple of things to check for. What is the date of the article or writing? This can tell you a lot, because if there's an article that's outdated, it could be uncredible. Can the reader find further information on the subject online? There should also be further information online, because the author who published that is not the only person that published that, related to the topic. Does the author cite their sources properly? If the author cites their sources improperly, it can be a red flag as to if the author is credible or not. And is Wikipedia a source used? Wikipedia is not a credible source, but the sources used that Wikipedia uses to find their information is credible. Ask yourself, where was the source published? Who wrote it? So did like a doctor or a scientist write it? Is the source appropriate for the field? Meaning as in, is a math teacher writing about psychological health or something? Is the source associated with a reputable institution? As in, is it published from like a Harvard study or a Yale study or something like that? Is there bias? Now that's just another red flag, because it could be credible with slight bias in there, but if something is extremely biased, you should be a red flag. And throughout the whole thing, you should always ask yourself, what is the author's purpose in writing it? So here's an overview.
Students often receive research assignments requiring the use of credible sources. But what does it mean for a source to be credible? Why is it important to use these sources? And how can you tell if a source is credible? When we describe a source as credible, we're basically saying that the information is high quality and trustworthy. Essentially, that we can believe what the source is telling us. When you use high-quality sources to back up your points, you demonstrate your own credibility as a writer, thereby contributing to the overall effectiveness of your argument. The best quality research builds on other high-quality research. This is true of both your own work and the work of professional researchers. There are several factors that contribute to a source's credibility. Among them are the author's level of expertise, her point of view, and the source's publication date. The author's level of expertise on the topic he or she is writing about could take the form of an advanced degree or other extensive experience in the field. A credible source often provides information about the author's credentials. Sometimes, however, the author's credentials may not be listed, and the publication itself can be the marker of quality. This is often true for some non-scholarly publications like well-respected newspapers and magazines, where the article's content is critically examined as part of the publication process. Another important component of a source's credibility is its point of view, in particular its potential bias. Bias is an inaccurate or unfair presentation of information. In some cases, bias is intentional. A group with its own agenda may sponsor research or information, and the sponsorship may influence the results. Bias can also be unintentional. A writer's perspective may prevent him or her from being able to see all sides of an issue. Sometimes you need unbiased facts to support your point, but other times you might want people's opinions, and that's okay, as long as you acknowledge the source's perspective in your own work. While bias can be difficult to detect, be aware that it can exist in any kind of source, including things you find through the library. In the academic publishing world, books and articles go through a rigorous editorial process, in which an editor or group of scholars evaluate the work's quality. When it comes to journal articles, this process is called peer review. Peer review articles are considered high quality because the review process helps to filter out sources that are written by unqualified or biased authors. Finally, with any source, consider when it was published or last updated. Even something that was once high quality can now be out of date and unsuitable for some purposes. If I needed current statistics on the average cost of college in the United States, a source published in the 1990s would be out of date. However, if I was looking at the increase in college tuition over the last few decades, a source from the 1990s might fit my purposes. Of course, not every credible source is appropriate for your research. Be sure to evaluate not only a source's trustworthiness, but also its appropriateness for your argument. For help finding credible sources or determining whether a source you found is credible, ask a librarian.